University is no longer seen as the way out. Everybody was raving and ranting about university and how you need to go to university if you want a good job, if you want to make a certain amount of money. But honestly, in the past 10 years, it feels like the tide has just shifted. Even with things like AI coming into it, like there are so many degrees, there are so many jobs that are going to be at risk. You know what I find so interesting? I find it so interesting, the fact that university is no longer seen as the way out. Growing up here, everybody was raving and ranting about university and how you need to go to university if you want a good job, if you want to make a certain amount of money. But honestly, in the past 10 years, it feels like the tide has just shifted. Now that I have my own business, I've seen the type of people that I'm essentially employing, the type of people that I'm paying to do certain jobs. You know, there are certain jobs that in all honesty, I felt like they were looked down upon, but I feel like times are really changing right now. For example, people in the trades industry, plumbers, like people doing like plumbing jobs, like electricians and things like that. For me, not even for me, to be honest, I think generally growing up here in an African household, if you told your parents that you wanted to do apprenticeship to be a plumber or an electrician, those jobs were looked down upon. Doing an apprenticeship to do a trades was looked down upon massively. But see, those jobs there, those jobs are jobs that will never die and it's always needed, you know. So yeah, man, I think it's so interesting that how times have really changed, because there are some people, there are many people, they spent 3-4 years in university to study a degree so that they can get a certain job. And years later, they're not even doing that job. There are many people who spent their time going to university for them to come out and still be scrabbling for a job. Whereas that same person who decided to study a trades and do an apprenticeship, they now secured a job straight away. You know, and I think this is why in life, like, never look down on anyone, never look down on any career, because really and truly, like, not all that glitters is gold. You know, and I think the perception of university being the way out has changed massively. I think in Generation Z or the generation after that, whatever it is, I think it's so interesting how things have really changed. Personally, I think the only reason, university is a must, like absolute must, it depends on the job that you want to do. For those who obviously want to be doctors, those who want to be lawyers, those type of jobs, the scientists and things like that, those are the jobs where university is essential. But there are so many people going to uni to study business management or again, no shade. If you've done that, innit? Like, kudos to you. But there's some people, like, there's some roles that, there's some degrees, that there's no need, you know. And growing up, there was a lot of pressure on me because I chose not to go to university. Now, me personally, I chose not to go to university. And I'll forever say that wasn't taken lightly. Yeah, as long as I live, I will remember that whole experience of me choosing not to go to university and how that was looked down upon. Like, even without words being said, words were said. Just by the looks you get for choosing not to go to university, words were said. Like, it's almost like you were a failure. Like, in the eyes of an African parent, maybe it might not be now, but years ago, 7 whatever years ago, at least, and even past, if you choose not to go to university, it's looked down upon. There is so much pressure on you to go to university because a lot of people believe that university is the way out, but times have changed massively. You no longer need to go to university to do certain things in life. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying everything, I'm saying certain things in life. I think one thing that a lot of people do talk about university is obviously for the experience and quote unquote being independent. I remember when I made that post on my Instagram, somebody reached out to me and said, you know, the reason why people are slating going to university is because they never went to university. But really and truly, even those who did go to university, many of them are saying the same thing, because now you look at them now and they're paying student loans. They're now in debt. They've now gone to university and they're now in debt. So the money that they're making in the cost of living crisis, the money's even being decreased even further because of a university degree that they no longer use. You know, you hear of so many people who they have so many degrees. They might even go to university a further time, but it's all pointless because they're not using it. You know, and when you look at jobs that people are doing, there are many jobs that actually don't require a degree, that even high paying jobs. I think when I was speaking to one of my friends, they were talking about UX designer. Like, they were doing a UX course to be a UX designer. And honestly, the salary that they would do from doing that course, like, is a ridiculous amount. You know, so I think now the perspective has really changed in terms of, is university really worth it? And I think we're going to see a growing trend of young people deciding not to go to university and pursuing other careers, you know. And even with things like AI coming into it, like, there are so many degrees, there are so many jobs that are going to be at risk. So really and truly, you have to learn how to adapt. And I think it's not the same way that it was 20, 30 years ago, where if you don't go to university, you're not going to get a job, because really and truly competition is from everywhere, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm not saying that there's no benefits at all to go to university, because if you're somebody who's young and you're thinking whether you want to go to university or not, I think there are just certain questions that you need to ask yourself. What is it that I want to do in life? If you don't know what you want to do in life, then there's no point forcing yourself just to go get yourself in debt, go do a degree. There were so many people that I knew when I was around the age when I was contemplating going to university that end up just going to university and dropping out of the first year. So for me, I just wasn't like that. I just felt deep down, this is going to be a waste of my time. There is nothing that I'm going to do in this university that I genuinely believe will make sure that I get to where I want to be. I think there are certain life skills that you can get, but really and truly, you can develop those life skills in so many other places. Obviously I moved out early anyway because I was playing football, but that independence, you can get that in so many places. But really and truly, man, I think if people are only banking on university to get a degree, I think they really need to open their eyes, man, because there's so much out there. I remember even after I had my 10th property, it was still, I don't need to say who, but I was still told, go to university and study a business degree. But then in my eyes, why would I now go to university and study a business degree when I already had a business, and the person who's teaching me about business probably doesn't even have a business? So it really doesn't make sense. And even when I spoke to Ayo, like, it's so interesting, like how he broke down the education system. If you haven't watched the video, by the way, watch the video. It's probably, I don't know when this is going to be uploaded, but it's a podcast I've done with Ayo Noble, and he was basically talking about the education system. So yeah, he was really talking about the education system, and generally when you actually deep it, it really is a trap. You're programmed to think that do this, go to university. Once you graduate from university, you're going to get this job. And even a job. Now, I'm not slating all jobs, but I think sometimes it can really program you to think that this is all you're worth. All you're worth is £2,500 a month. But really and truly, there is so much more out there. And I feel like it can really limit people's thinking. I'm just going to go to college, then I'm just going to go to university, then I'm just going to graduate, then I'm just going to have a retire at 65 or 70 or whatever. And then I'm just going to, really and truly, there really is more out there. But I think sometimes through whatever reason, maybe it's upbringing or whatever, people just go down the same route as everybody else, man. But I think now there really is a shift, and I feel like now that I've had my own business for the past 4 years, I've really seen a lot, and I'm grateful for the fact that I didn't give into the norm and just decide to go to university just to please other people. I'm glad that I decided to take that choice and actually choose not to do it and actually experience life myself, because I tell you, there is no greater experience than actually doing the thing. For example, I could have gone to university and studied a business degree, but studying a business degree is very, very different to actually having your own business. Like, you learn firsthand, certain things, so yeah, man, I think there is a lot of people who said, people who have gone to university and they've said similar things. So I think, yeah, man, I think my advice really is to, if anybody is at that age and they're thinking, I think just think to yourself, like, what is it that you really want to do? Like, there's no point trying to live your life to please someone else. What is it that you really want to do? And is this really going to help me get to where I need to get to? But I mean, people can let me know in the comments. There's some people who've gone uni, some people who haven't gone uni. You let me know in the comments if you think it was worth it. If the degree that you got or whatever, if you're still using it today. So I've decided to get some stats, so it's not just me talking by my own self. And looking at the stats very quickly, it is clear that there still are some benefits of going to university, but I also do think that in terms of on average, that, for example, this is saying that the median salary for postgrad is 29.5k, but for non-grad is 19.5k. But I think the reason why this is slightly skewed, because it generally depends what roles people go down. And I think this is an important factor to take in. If you're comparing, for example, somebody who decided to be a cleaner, and obviously you're going to compare it to somebody who now decided to get a university degree and ends up working in an office, for example, then obviously the data is going to be skewed. So this is why I'm saying it's so important for you to actually think, what is it that you are doing? What degree is it that you want to do? Obviously, if you want to be, like, for example, if you want to go into medicine, law, engineering, and things like that, cool, fair enough. Yes, it's going to be needed. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, for example, or if you're in some industries, whether it's the creative fashion industries or whether it's tech and things like that, trades, it's not needed. It's not even, as I said, with AI and all these things moving in, I feel like there's going to be so much more in terms of tech, in terms of like being advanced and things like that. So that's why I think that people really have to become creative. If you're not creative, I feel like life is going to have to make you become creative, man. But as I said, all in all, this is just my opinion. Some people can share their opinion. They can feel, if they can let me know if they feel like it was worth it for them, or if they have experiences of people who say it's worth it or not worth it. But I do think there definitely is going to be a massive shift in terms of what people do. And thank you for getting to the end of the video. As always, make sure you like, comment and subscribe. If you have other views, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you have other views, because I'm interested to see how a lot of people see university, whether it's pros or cons. But yeah, let me know in the comments. But make sure you subscribe to the channel and follow me on Instagram _EZY property.